still dreaming sweet dreams on his bed in the rental house, but the next second, he found himself lying naked in a thorny primitive jungle. He was an invader who had entered the mysterious tribe's territory without any cover. He didn't speak the language, was unarmed, and had no hope of escaping. He stepped on the thorns barefoot, and the primitive warriors chased him like a beast. He was captured alive and brought back to the tribe like a lamb to be slaughtered. At this moment, he was completely stunned. The sharp pain on the soles of his feet from the moment the thorns pierced his skin reminded him harshly, this is not a dream. Could it be that he had traveled through time? What about the system? What about the golden finger? He desperately tried all the spells he could think of, and even unconsciously shouted, "Open sesame," but the only response he got was the primitive man's contemptuous look in his eyes and the piercing pain on the soles of his feet. Without modern equipment, superpowers, or even a fig leaf, he was captured naked and dragged into a shabby shack that looked like a cannibal tribe. What made him even more desperate was the greedy look in the tribal elders' eyes, as if they were looking at a piece of meat to be roasted. Being locked in a shabby shed with a pungent smell, Sui panicked. Was he going to become a delicacy on the table of these primitive people just after crossing over? Sui was extremely distressed, but he was never one to sit and wait for death. Soon, a plan quietly emerged in his mind. He decided to make a pair of shoes out of animal skins in an attempt to escape from the tribe, which appeared to be cannibals. Unexpectedly, no matter how hard he tried to tear the tough animal skin, there was no sign of breaking. After some searching, Sui finally found a stone in the mud behind the shack. Sui used the stone in his hand to barely cut a gap in the hide. Following the gap, he finally succeeded in tearing the hide in half. As the light in the shack was dim, Sui could only rely on groping to wrap the animal skin as much as possible around the sole of his foot. After some strenuous attempts, he finally made a simple shoe. Just as he was about to clear the dead leaves behind the shack, cheers suddenly came from outside. Sui smiled bitterly and sat back down. The next moment, the door of the shack was opened, and shouts came from the door. Sui bent down and walked out. The blinding sunlight shone upon him again, warm and bright. He squinted his eyes slightly, and after adjusting to the light, he could see the surrounding scene clearly. More than 20 young men and women dressed in animal skins, holding stone knives and bone spears, stood not far away. Just behind them, where a few children had just been playing, lay a dead wild boar covered in blood. Sui's appearance immediately attracted everyone's attention. When the young women saw his naked body, they immediately turned their backs, while a few older women glanced at him nonchalantly and then turned their eyes away. Sui felt uncomfortable all over and felt a sharp pain behind him, as if someone was forcing him to move forward. After taking a few steps, he calmed down and muttered to himself, "Damn it, the dead bird will fly up to the sky." He walked towards one of the largest shacks, guessing that was where he would meet the tribal leader. At this moment, a shout suddenly came from behind him. A tall young man threw a piece of fur at him with a look of disgust. The man looked at Sui, then glanced at his lower body, his eyes full of threats and warnings. Sui was irritated by the other party's look that was like looking at pigs and dogs. He turned around without hesitation, held his head high, and walked towards the door of the shack with his head shaking. If you were destined to be eaten, you might as well experience the life of primitive society. There was an angry scolding behind him, but Sui didn't care. He smiled lightly and continued walking forward. He lifted the door, curtain woven with leaves, and was stunned by the scene in front of him. Sitting on the tiger skin stone chair facing the door was a beautiful woman in her 20s. Could this be the leader of the tribe? Her face was painted with complicated patterns, but it couldn't hide her delicate features. A circle of animal teeth hung around her neck, and deerskin covered her chest and thighs. Under the woman's majestic gaze, Sui didn't care at all and looked at her wantonly. However, the next moment, the woman sitting on the seat suddenly turned over, picked up the stone knife beside her, and slashed at him. "Do you think the chief will chop off his head? The chief hates cowards the most. That foreigner is not as brave as our Yao Ding," said the tribe member. Yao Ding was a naked child, and he puffed out his chest when he heard that. However, he is the first outsider to enter the territory in several years. "The chieftain will not kill him," said a slightly older woman. "Humph." A cold snort came from outside the small circle. Everyone looked sideways and shut their mouths. The man who came was the elder brother of the tribe leader, Yao Ying, who was also the strongest warrior in the tribe. "How dare he go to see my sister without any cover?" Yao Ying said. Everyone in the tribe looked at the half-piece of cowhide on the ground, with a hint of mockery in their eyes. Before the tribe encountered the change, there was a blind outsider who tried to offend Yao Yu, who was not the tribe leader at that time. She risked a war between the two tribes and smashed the other person's genitals. "Where did you catch them?" Yao Ying glanced at a short tribesman in the crowd. "I'll take you there." The two of them left the camp one after the other. The stinging pain on his neck made Sui feel a rush of warm blood. The woman suddenly attacked him, her movements as swift as a cheetah, and he had no time to react. However, under the threat of death, Sui instinctively raised his fist and hit the opponent's cheek. The female chief bent down and dodged the attack flexibly. She took 2 steps back, out of Sui's attack range, sat back on the tiger skin stone chair, crossed her legs, and looked him up and down coldly. The stinging pain in his neck made him nervous, but the amount of blood was not large. It should be just a scratch on the skin. After saving his life, Sui gradually calmed down and stared at the other person quietly. Not killing him immediately might mean there was still room for negotiation. He knew he couldn't act rashly, lest he anger the other party. "Which clan are you from?" The woman on the seat spoke in a clear and crisp voice. Sui shook his head, indicating that he did not understand. Then, the female chief communicated with him in several languages, but Sui still shook his head blankly. After a fruitless communication, Sui was locked up back in the shack. The adult members of the tribe gathered in the meeting hall, which was also the big shack. "Chief, why don't you kill him?" "Yes, why not kill him?" someone echoed. Daoyu, the chief, looked at everyone quietly. "Tell me, why do you want to kill him?" Hearing the tribe leader's question, the man was stunned. He thought for a while before speaking again. He invaded our territory. "We have to kill him for invading our territory?" "As far as I know, he didn't take a single leaf from us, did he?" Daoyu looked at a tribe member who had grabbed Sui. Under her gaze, the tribe member straightened his chest. "Yes, he was wearing nothing when I met him. Since he didn't take away our resources, we can't kill him." Daoyu glanced at everyone and found that her brother and another tribesman were not present. "But that foreigner offended you," a male member of the tribe said. "He is a shameless foreigner. Can we bother with a savage?" Daoyu said calmly. "Yes, he was shameless in front of us just now. So we can't kill him. According to our ancestral teachings, we have to treat him with delicious food." An elderly female member of the tribe said loudly. "If he wants to leave, we can't stop him." Another tribesman added. "Going against the will of the god of fire will be punished." Yes. Everyone talked at once, recalling the taboos and ancestral teachings in their minds. Daoyu heard the answer she wanted and nodded slightly. It has been a long time since any outsider has entered the territory of the Sueño tribe. No wonder the tribe members have forgotten their ancestral teachings. "No, we must kill him." At this time, Yaoing stepped in, holding a bloody pheasant in his hand. "We found this at the place where the foreigner was found. He wanted to plunder our food." These words aroused the anger of the tribesmen, and flames of anger ignited in their eyes. Even the tribesman who had just advocated treating outsiders kindly gnashed his teeth. "Damn foreigner. If Eagle hadn't gone back to check, we would have been deceived by him. Cut off his head. Chop him into pieces," said the tribesman. "Why didn't I notice it just now?" The tribesman who captured Sui touched his head and tried to recall. "You were deceived by the treacherous foreigner. He hid the pheasant in the bushes." Yaoing continued. "Then he is really a cunning foreigner." Seeing the indignation of his fellow tribesmen, Yaoing felt relieved. When he looked up, he found that his sister was staring at him coldly, and he changed his expression to an angry one. If you want to keep a foreigner, don't think he doesn't know what his sister is thinking. Yaoyu looked at the pheasant that was still dripping with blood, and a dangerous light flashed in her eyes. She would not allow anyone to lie in front of her. "Brother, are you sure this pheasant was killed by an outsider?" she said in a cold voice. "Of course, if we catch the outsider, we can prove it," Yaoing said, meeting his sister's gaze. "Did you see the foreigner kill the pheasant with your own eyes?" Yaoyu turned around and asked. Yes. Yaoing hesitated. "I was the first to discover the foreigner, and saw him hide the pheasant with my own eyes." Yaoyu's expression did not change, but there was a little more anger in his eyes. "Very good. They actually teamed up to deceive her. The pheasant that had been dead for a long time was still dripping blood. They really thought she was a fool, but she knew that if she expressed her doubts, Yaoing would definitely have a countermeasure. We will hold a sacrifice ceremony in 3 days, and use the blood of foreigners to comfort our ancestors." Yaoyu raised his stone knife and shouted. The tribesmen below immediately echoed him. In the shack, Sui was still confused. He didn't know what the female chief was going to do, but he knew that his fate was still in his own hands. Following the gap in the house, he saw that all the adults had entered the largest shack. He was delighted, thinking to himself that these stupid primitive people had forgotten in the blink of an eye that they had a captive. The escape plan was activated again. The shack was simple, and Sui quickly tore open a hole big enough for him to crawl out. As soon as he stuck his head out, a pair of small feet appeared in front of him. Sui swallowed his saliva, his heart pounding. When he looked up, he saw a little bird, and then a few little kids surrounding the shack, who were looking at him with curiosity. "Damn it, I've been discovered. But don't panic." Sui gritted his teeth and retracted his head and blocked the hole again. He sat back in the shack, his heart still beating violently. He now only hoped that these little ancestors would not go to the adults to inform on him. Otherwise, he might even have his legs broken. After all, these people were primitive people wearing animal skins and holding stone tools. Sui knew very well that these little brats were arranged to guard him. After staring at the big shack and observing for a long time, Sui finally breathed a sigh of relief. He did not see the snitching child. Not long after, a group of people came out of the shack. Sui noticed that everyone looked at him more ferociously than before. It's over. They must have planned how to eat him. I should have run away if I had known. Sui slapped his forehead in regret. In the big shack, Chief, that foreigner is innocent. Looking at the remaining tribesmen, Yao Yu raised his eyebrows slightly. Oh, do you mean that Li is lying?